Hey there, thank you again so much for joining me on my channel. I really appreciate everybody's support. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about something that's been top of mind for me recently, which is using Dorico for iPad. And unfortunately, when I'm doing this, I have to share my screen from my iPad, which means I can't see my normal overview of the actual stream. So I'm sorry, but if you leave comments or anything in the discussion, I won't be able to see those right now. So I apologize for that, but let's get started. Essentially, this is going to be an overview of how I have used Dorico for iPad in my workflow. Now, there are some advantages that I want to point out. And also some caveats. So the main advantage is that this is very convenient. I can take my iPad away from my studio much more easily than I can take my main computer. It is fairly robust for certainly sketching, and I'll talk a little bit about how I use it and how sort of fancy my productions get. But it's actually a really robust app. There are a couple of caveats, though, however, which I'll also talk about. And these, some of the sort of, I suppose, bullet points are that you obviously don't have access to your fancy sample libraries. There is Iconica Sketch is basically built into this if you have the most up-to-date version of Dorico for iPad. But you can't use, Spitfire and Berlin series and things like that, to my knowledge anyway. So again, I'm just going to say for those that might just be jumping in, I'm sorry, but I can't see any of the chat because I'm sharing screen from my iPad. I'm going to just jump right in here and give you guys an idea of what this looks like in case you are new to using Dorico on your iPad. So I'm running a 12.9-inch iPad Pro. I think this is from about 2021. And when you create a new project, it's very similar up here. There's a Create New button. You can go ahead and set up your normal variables here. You can't really have custom templates here, which is definitely a big caveat for me. I use custom templates a lot in my main Dorico Pro setup on my studio computer to help me just speed up the process of doing sketches and orchestrations and that sort of thing. And as far as I can see, and my recollection is that this has actually been explored on the Dorico forums at Steinberg, and they have said no, there really is not an infrastructure for creating your own templates. So that is definitely a caveat. There are some other nice features though that are standard from Dorico along the right hand side, like putting in your title and who the author is, and then bar count, a key signature and that sort of thing, just to get started. Under Open Recent, I've got this demo that I just set up, but you'd see your normal projects there. And also up here, you'll see these tabs, recent projects on my iPad and iCloud Drive. I want to talk a little bit about using iCloud Drive because it is something that I wish worked more reliably for me, and it just may be my setup, but it worked really well through Dorico iPad version 4. Around version 5, what I noticed was that if I had Dorico set up to save all new projects directly to iCloud Drive, that it would often hang when I was creating a new project, and so that was just a drag. But I am going to show you how you can actually move the files from your iPad into your iCloud Drive so that you can get around. This is how I've gotten around this, is basically I have it set up to create the new projects directly on my iPad, which it has, seems to have more ready access to. I think what really happens in my case is that I have limited data on my iPad. I do have a cellular iPad, and when I run out of data each month, which pretty much happens every single month, that in those cases, the transaction to create it on iCloud, create a new project on iCloud, gets kind of hampered and slowed down, and that locks up Dorico. So I think if you have if you have unlimited data on your iPad, then that probably would work really well. I just don't. So I have gotten into a workflow of creating it on my iPad, and then I'll show you how you can actually go into files and you can move those over fairly easily. So let me take myself off the screen and go back here to one thing I wanted to look at is up in the right hand corner, and I'm sorry I can't zoom in like I normally can. In the upper right hand corner there's like a little hamburger menu, and if you open that up and you go to preferences, you'll see the first item there is saving projects, default project location on this iPad or iCloud Drive. iCloud Drive is very convenient because then you will just find them on your computer later on. But as I just said, I often have this set to on iPad so that when I run out of data on my iPad, it doesn't slow me down. Okay, but other than that, it's very easy. I would just be using, I'm pretty familiar with all the key commands, so I'm hitting enter, maybe hit Q to enter chords, hitting 8 for whole notes, you know, and I'll do, I don't know, E, G, and B for an E major chord. Tab out over here, go to an A, something like that. Tab to select them all, down an octave, something like that. So I'll often use this environment when I'm mobile, so I am away from my studio and I want to sketch something. As I said at the top of the video, the sound libraries here are limited to what Dorico Pro for iPad or Dorico for iPad gives us. And that does include, with the newest version, which I think is 5 and 5.1, does include the Iconica Sketch, which is a great library. It's better than what we had previously in the iPad version of Dorico, and it is really good for specifically sketching. It'll definitely give you a realistic idea of how, you know, your string section, your wind section, your brass section is going to sound. There's some reasonable patches in there. However, you know, you're never going to get sort of a professional grade production out of just the iPad version all by itself. So if you're thinking at all about using the iPad version as your main version, I would hazard against that unless you are really just writing scores. If you really are just writing scores, you're giving these maybe to students, or you are orchestrating for a band, an orchestra, or, you know, production theater or something like that, where the finished engraved score is really the object of the goal of your work, then actually you could do all of that work here quite easily. There are some other caveats in terms of features if you're used to using Dorico Pro. Things like explode and reduce, which I've talked about in previous videos. Some of those Pro features are not available here. Generating notes from chord symbols and generating chord symbols from notes. Those are examples of features that are in Dorico Pro, which I do use fairly often, that are not in here. Now, if you use something like Divisi, for example, you can't actually set up Divisi in the project directly in Dorico for iPad, but if you were to create a project in Dorico Pro that had Divisi, and then you saved it on iCloud, and you loaded it up here, you would see those retained. So there are some things in Dorico Pro that the Dorico for iPad are capable of retaining and maintaining for you to work on. It just can't create them from scratch. So there are some caveats there. Generally, I'm using the iPad version to sketch. I'm mobile, I'm out at a coffee shop, I'm coming up with ideas, I've got my headphones in, and I'm just sketching ideas. Once I have my melody and my counter melody and my harmony and all that stuff written out, I will bring it back to my studio. So I'll show you just now how I actually transfer the files over. And just a reminder to anyone who's come in, I can't see the chat because I am sharing my screen here with my iPad, so I don't see the normal computer screen where I can monitor the live stream. So let's go ahead and look at how I get these files moved around. I open up the files program here, and I would say go into browse, and I'm going to go into documents, and I've got Dorico projects here, and I'm going to find, I'm actually looking for something more specific. I think this may be it here. Maybe this is not it. There is actually a documents file on this it's not here. I'm sorry for confusing the issue here. I should have been a little bit better prepared, but actually figuring out the screen sharing was a little bit frustrating. Let me see if I am pretty sure that it's under Documents, and that it would have been under here. So I'm sorry, I think I may be actually syncing right now and some of the files aren't showing up. But let's say, for example, that this was my file. Then I can actually click move, or I can copy it. I should be able to anyway. I think the fact that, as you can see, maybe down here at the bottom, it's syncing some files, which is a bit distracting. So I don't want to waste too much time on that, but using the files feature in your iPad, you can actually locate, there is a place where the Dorico files are saved. It is not the Dorico folder in the iCloud folder. So if you're familiar with the Apple environment, in iCloud you're going to have usually typically a folder for a lot of main apps. So any app that can connect to iCloud, you'll actually have it in there. And the Dorico folder will have a little Dorico icon on it. That's the one that would be synced to your other devices, to your iPhone or to your Mac. But there is actually a folder on the iPad that is just for Dorico, for the onboard app, where you will find these projects. And I'm sorry that I wasn't quite prepared to bring that up, but I'm sure if you Google it, you'll find it very quickly. And that's where I go. I go into the Files app, which was new to iPad OS from maybe a few versions ago. And then I actually, when you hold and click the file, you can move it to another location or copy it to another location. You do copy it to that iCloud folder that has the little Dorico icon on it. And then you wait for that to sync and you'll see it on your computer and you can open it up from Dorico on your computer. So again, just sort of a summary. Mainly, this is great for sketching. It's very powerful, especially if you have a keyboard and you know the keyboard commands for entering chords, notes, that sort of thing, different note durations and grid resolutions, that sort of thing. Then it's a great way to sketch. You can add a lot of instruments. I also recommend personally buying the lifetime version of it. That's what I did. It was 130 bucks, I think, when I bought it a couple years ago, which basically gives me all the upgrades and also means that I can pretty much do as many instruments as I need. I'm not going to be able to do a massive orchestration in there, but of course it's really for sketching, and I think that's an important distinction. You're really using the iPad as a sketching tool at the beginning and the outset of a project, not in the middle and certainly not at the end of the project, at least in my workflow. So thank you so much for joining me today. If you have any questions about this, which you certainly may, since there was an aspect of transferring the files there that I kind of glossed over, but I appreciate you. Please let me know your questions and I will get back to you. If there are other aspects or other workflows that you're using, please leave those in the comments too, because I'd be interested in ideas about how other people are using it. And I appreciate it. Thanks again, and I will see you again hopefully on Friday. If not, then again on Monday. Anybody out in Florida, I hope you guys are doing okay. I know that Hurricane Milton is a real threat, and I hope everyone's okay. And I will hopefully hear good news from that part of the country. And take care until next time I see you. All right, bye for now.